Welcome to our spoilers review of A Fire and Stars by Audrey Coulthurst.
I was so hyped for this!
I think a lot of people were. Like, everybody read the back of this book and they were like, hey, this sounds freaking amazing. It's a fantasy series, but you also have a lesbian romance as like the center romance instead of like your usual girl-guy whatever, and you know, this is gonna be great.
Okay, so the things I did like. Right off the bat, it doesn't force like a heteronormative view on relationships. Men court men, women court women, women court men, men court women, that the councils are made up of men and women. It's a very gender equal society.
It's like to a degree.
To a degree, because on one hand you have, it's just like, oh, you know, men and women can pretty much do anything, but on the other hand, you have Denna arriving at this court and basically being like, okay, so you're gonna be the princess and you're gonna organize the parties, and like, maybe if you're lucky and we kinda think you're okay, we'll bring you onto the council. And so her entire relationship with the prince is following these rules from, you know, your traditional stereotypical fantasy story, but trying to set it in a more progressive. So it was kind of conflicting, and that drove me crazy, because it's like, you can't have it both ways. You're either going to do this progressively, or you're gonna set it in a traditional, like, oh, you know, it's taboo, blah, blah, blah.
It's a disconnect.
Yeah.
So you like the fact that it's a gender neutral
I do.
society, but in the end it was like, it only got halfway there.
So you have Denna falling for Mare. You could either played it up the whole like, oh, well, you're supposed to marry the prince and blah, 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 heteronormative relationship. But it was just kind of like, so you were promised to this guy, and like, okay.
Yeah, they're kind of like, well, we're not really expected to love each other. If we love each other, that's fine, but we just have to kind of go through this thing.
This entire book waiting for the prince to do something super shitty.
And he didn't really.
And he doesn't really.
He had one moment where he's like, I must be evil.
And I mean, I both liked and didn't like that. I liked that he seemed like a decent human being, so it didn't feel like her relationship with Mare was like a rebellion, and her relationship with Mare felt more real. It's just like, well, I do kind of like you as a person, but I like your sister more. But at the same time, then his random turn near the end, it's like, I am going to sell off my sister's beloved horse, blah, blah, blah. Just like, why are you doing that? Now you seem petty.
You know you're being a dick, just stop it. And I think the problem too with that is that he wasn't like a full character. He just kind of popped up to be like, oh yeah, remember me? I'm still here doing shit.
I mean, I kind of felt sorry for him, because the author kept trying to make you feel sorry for him. Like, he's trying with his relationship with Denna.
When he remembers she exists.
Yeah, and he's trying to run this country. And like, when the king gets murdered in like the last third of the book, you feel really bad for him.
Yeah, because he loved his father. He probably thought, you know, he has a couple years to, you know, get used to the idea of being king, and it didn't happen for him.
It just,
But it's just like, you don't really, you kind of get like this sideline perspective, and I'm like, oh yeah, you should feel sorry for him, but I'm not gonna bother giving him the time to be a character.
Yeah. This book has a lot of disconnects.
Basically, in this kingdom, you have these three kingdoms. There's Minaria, Zamorda, and Havamont. Zamorda has all the magic, and you know, they're dark and mysterious, and then the two other kingdoms are like kind of shunning magic and trying to push it out of their society, and they also want an alliance in case something happens with Zamorda, and you know, that way they can repel them together, and woo! So that's why Denna and Prince Sandy are supposed to get married.
So Denna's been training her entire life to be a good ruler and be a good advisor and just be the bestest queen in the best country
But
ever.
she has this deep dark secret. She's secretly a really powerful magic user.
But she doesn't know how to control it.
Yeah, so she kind of like secretly burns things, like accidentally when she gets mad. And so that's kind of like her deep dark secret that she's kind of trying to keep from Thandy. She does eventually tell Mare. Basically what happens is Mare and Denna kind of get to know each other over horseback riding lessons that she has to take. And I kind of like the horse aspect to it, as in it works as like a good world building thing. You feel like Minaria has like this separate culture from Havamont, and she has to learn it to kind of fit in, and you're like, that's great. But then the horses take over everything. They're always in the bar and they're discussing horses like they're characters, when the other character, like, which is fine, but the other characters, like Thandy, don't get a whole bunch of time.
I'm here for two things. I'm here for an awesome romance, and I'm here for my political intrigue. I am getting Neither. My biggest problem with the book was Mare. Mare, I couldn't deal with her. Denna and Mare are set up to be on the two opposite ends of the spectrum. Denna is like the perfect princess who is very courtly. You know, like when you think of a princess, poof, Denna. Mare, on the other hand, is like the ultimate like rebel, you know, rebel without a cause. And she spends the entire book complaining that nobody takes her seriously and everyone, all the adults, the entire council, they're idiots.
And you're like, well, no one takes you seriously because you haven't presented yourself ever in a serious light in your entire life. You've always been like, nope, I don't want to deal with this. I don't care about this. I'm over here doing my own thing. And they're like, well, okay, well, you clearly don't have an invested interest in this kingdom, so therefore go over there, do your own thing, don't bug the adults.
But I'm the smartest person here.
Don't bug the adults.
And so she complains and she complains and she complains and she complains and just hates on everyone, and it gets so repetitive and so boring. If she tried more. She doesn't try and do anything until later on in the middle of the book where she goes and she says, well, this is what's happening, and they're like, the adults are talking.
On the one hand, you're like, oh, well, she's right, but you're like, I don't blame these people either.
They are running a country. They are running a country. The main advisor to the king is dead. Of course, they want to look into who murdered the advisor to the king, but at the same time, they still have to run the country. They're dealing with a possible invasion. They're dealing
with like this bubbling like hotbed situation between the anti-mage extremists and the mages.
There's so much going on at once. She comes off as being very petulant. It's just like, we're not doing my thing, so I don't like you.
And you're like, oh, come on, guys.
So then now you're forcing these two characters from the two opposite ends of the spectrum in a relationship, and so I found it very hard at first to believe that there was any kind of connection between the two of them at all, because Mare is kind of hating on Denna because Denna is everything that Mare is not, and Denna's terrified of Mare because Mare is everything Denna is not, and is very rough around the edges and
fuck society.
Yeah.
And they do come together, and eventually you're like, yeah, okay, I guess it's fine. But you're not feeling the sparks coming off of them. Like if you were expecting something like Simon and Baz from Carry On. No.
And that's a very good parallel because these are two characters from the opposite sides of the spectrum. Simon, all good. Baz, kind of like the dark, broody hero. And when they hit each other, it works.
I don't know what she did, but like you could have set off a forest fire with those two in the middle of a rainstorm. Like,
I think part of it is because their differences were built in such a way that you could see how they would work together. In this, she has to constantly tell you that the characters are thinking about one another. It's implied in Carry On. It's just like, I could not stop thinking about Denna, how soft she was, you know? Like
yeah.
And then there's the whole ownership thing that kind of freaked me out, how Mara's always just going on, oh, I wish she was mine and she didn't belong to my brother. Like,
and you're like, she's a person.
And you one hand you turn around and you're like, you don't respect her and you don't treat her like a person. I wish she was mine.
And Mare always wants to be treated like a person, so how she can talk about Denna like that is like, were you not in your head thinking when the king's right-hand man gets assassinated, Mare, opportunity to step in and act like an adult, become the king's spy master. Let's do this. You got experience, you know what you're doing, all you gotta do is convince them that you can do this job. Go! And nobody even thinks about it. I don't even know how his shit got done. Then I'm like, well, I guess Denna could step in and do it and prove that she's really freaking awesome. Nobody steps in. They're like, well, he's dead.
He's now just like this gigantic gaping hole.
Something about this reminded me of Tamora Pierce, but all I could think of was, oh, this would be so much better if she wrote it.
The plot pretty much hits its point when, so the prince walks in on Mare and Denna. He separates them. He promises Mare to his new best friend, who you totally know is evil. Like, you totally know he's evil. Like, it's so obvious he's evil. And so during the next morning, the culling of the horses, he sells off his sister's favorite horse that she spent so long training
and bonded with
and everything. And then Mare is kidnapped by this
evil guy,
and Denna's like, your sister's been kidnapped, and Thandy's like, no, she hasn't. And so he finds out that she has magical abilities. He wants to lock her up. She escapes. She goes after Mare. She like brings down the stars and kills everyone and saves them, and then they ride off into the sunset together. You go from nothing happening to this. This is like your
This is your conclusion.
This is your conclusion.
That's, like, fairly interesting, but by this point you're just like, please, can this book be over now? I mean, I think they spend, honestly, the entire book, like, trying to figure out where this one knife came from.
So while you're reading this book, Denna is reading this other big, boring book, and I'm just like,
Knives.
oh, I'm so bored.
Yeah.
This could have been so awesome.
It really could have.
It could have.
I feel like when I'm explaining this to people, they're like, no, this sounds really good. I love this. And I'm like, yeah, it sounds amazing, but in practice, it's just so dull. I mean, the one other character I liked was actually Niall.
And of course, he gets it.
He dies, and I'm like, well, I don't know. No more interest in this. Like, I liked their relationship where they had once, like, been romantic, but they're not, but they're still really, really close, and they support each other. I was like, this is so cute. I like Mare and Niall's relationship. And then he dies. And then she's kind of like, I'm really, really sad, and I've forgotten. Who is Niall again?
But the thing is, we need more books like this. Yeah. That's the problem. We need more diverse books, and you know, if this is all we have for now,
that's fine.
It's fine. It's a starting ground. You have to start from somewhere, and
yeah, the next one might be better.
Yeah, who knows? The next book in the series might be better now that she's laid out all the groundwork. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be continuing it.
But hey, if, you know, I read the reviews for the next one and people are like, oh my god, well, I'll pick it up. But yeah, you know, so hopefully this is the start of a lot more books with same-sex couples, and really exciting. But as for this book, it's one of those ones that I'm gonna be like, maybe read something else.
Yeah.
But don't take my word for it. If you feel like reading it, go for it. So that was our review of Fire and Stars. Tell us what you thought of Mare and Denna's romance. And we will talk to you next time. Bye, guys.